If you want to know how to win listings against any agent in your market, this is going to be the ultimate listing masterclass, because I'm not only going to break down how to properly win listings in listing presentations, but I'm also going to show you how to use artificial intelligence to create the perfect listing presentation that will position you as the go-to agent against anybody in your market, even more experienced agents with bigger budgets, more recognition. This is going to help you leverage technology to position you as the agent that is an obvious choice to work with. Now, first we're gonna walk through what to do before you get to the listing presentation, because the game is won in the preparation. Many people show up unprepared. Then I'm going to show you the exact strategy of how to use a data-driven approach to create a listing presentation that is going to knock any other agent out of the park, and then show you how to win the listing and convert it. So this is gonna be a full masterclass. Let's start diving in. The listing presentation system, how to win listings against any other agent. So like we talked about, most agents lose listings before it even starts. And I'm gonna share with you, based on my own experience, a ton of ninja tricks that transparently I've never shared before anywhere else in any of my videos, of the subtleties that I did as a brand new agent with no budget and no experience to outperform and win listings against top agents in my market. So stay tuned for that, because I'm gonna drip these throughout the presentation, because some of these nobody talks about and they're game changers. So let's look at this, right? Some agents lose listings after they thought they did well. They are competing against more experienced agents and they're struggling to close. Let's kind of unpack those. I'm going to dive in deeper later in this presentation, but when you're competing against more experienced agents, I need you to understand this one thing. It's not the agent with the most experience that wins the listing. It's the better communicator. Communication's the number one skill you need to win in real estate. That is verbal, nonverbal or body language, and written forms of communication. If you are better at communicating your value proposition, which we will get into, and understanding what the sellers actually care about, meaning their motivation and their basic human needs, then you can win listings against the number one agent in your market. I've done it time and time again myself. Now, if you are losing listings after you thought that it went well, this is where you need to have an honest conversation with yourself. Oftentimes, agents who struggle play the blame game. It's the seller's fault, it's a different agent's fault. Look internally. Every time you fail, don't turn it into a failure, turn it into a lesson so that you can look at how you can improve. What could you have done better? And if you're struggling to close, that comes from lack of preparation, which leads to a lack of confidence. So what we're gonna walk away with is the pre-listing presentation strategies, winning presentation structure, objection handling, meaning commission, price point, and all of the things that stump agents, and closing strategies to make sure that in the listing presentation, you get the signed agreement. Almost every time, I not only won against more experienced agents, but I got them to sign the listing contract on the spot. Not later, not I need time to think about it, now, which is what I'm gonna share with you. So set the stage on the first call. Whenever you get contact with a seller, whether it's cold calling for sale by owner expired, whether it's through a referral, whether it is through a Facebook group or any social media strategies like I teach, we need to set the stage straight out the gate. Now, if you have any questions about any of this, drop a comment below. I do respond to 100% of the comments on my YouTube videos. And again, my goal is to make sure you can leave this and be a weapon at listing presentations, but you have to ask questions if you don't know what's going on. So setting the stage with the first call. The biggest thing is gonna be motivation, right? You have to understand why they are selling. Couple reasons for this. The first is it's going to allow you to connect emotionally with them, which is really critical. The second part is going to allow you to be pretty strategic when it comes to your listing presentation, because you're going to be able to loop that back as to the reason, the timeline, and some of the other elements that are going to help you position yourself against other agents. But the motivation is really critical because that's going to give you an idea of pricing, right? Like how aggressive do they have to be on the pricing? If they want to move in a month, they have to be more aggressive than if they want to move in 6 or 12 months. Based on the motivation, it's also going to allow you to position the timing of when to list based on the market. There's been times where I've actually told people to wait to list the property based on winter versus spring versus summer and fall. So motivation, critical, foundation number one. That's going to depict the timeline. Pricing expectations. It's really good to have an idea before you do your CMA what they believe their property's worth. This is just a simple question. Based on your understanding of your own home, what do you think it's worth? Now, most times people always think it's worth more than it is because of the emotional attachment. I will share with you an insane ninja trick later on that will almost guarantee you get your list price every time. And nobody does this. I was the only one that ever did it in my market that I knew of, and it is insanely valuable. But that's going to help you position your CMA properly because what you want to do with the comparative market analysis is get them to say the price, not you. If you say it, they're resistant. If they say it, they believe it. And property details, right? Before doing a proper comparative market analysis or CMA, you have to know, are there any upgrades or renovations, right? If they fully overhauled the kitchen, well, it could be worth a significant amount more than if it is, 30 years old. So getting an idea just so that you have the information you need to get all the details. Then we need to make sure that you are a master of the market. Again, it is not the most experienced agent that wins the listing presentations. The majority of agents that rest on their laurels of being 20 years in the business, 30 years in the business, they've been reliving their first year for 20 years. I know very few agents that have grown year over year for 20 years or 30 years, right? If they have, they're usually the top people in your market, but 90% of them or more have been doing squat for 20 years. So it's funny when they say that, oh my God, I've been in the industry for so many years. That doesn't matter. If you're a better communicator and you know more information about the market, you're going to be positioned as the authority. And this is what happens, especially for new or young agents. If you understand all of the details, the current months of inventory, average days on market, the list to sales price ratios, and you have an idea of comparables and all of the information based on different regions of your market, nobody's ever going to ask you how long you've been in the industry. I never got asked that because whenever somebody asked how is the market doing, I could give them very detailed responses like that quickly because every day, and I encourage you to do this, every day I spend 30 to 60 minutes in the morning studying that day's data. So I always knew how things were performing, not just as a whole in my city, but rather based on property type and based on location. But this is going to be important, and you can also research the sellers a little bit, right? See if they have a family, if they're on social media. This is really powerful. The more personal, the better, right? So almost every time, sellers are going to research you. It's very rare that somebody searches the sellers, but I would do this because if you saw that recently they went on a trip or they just got a new dog or had a new baby or something, I would always bring that up in the listing presentation. And it would show that I did my due diligence too, which is going that extra mile that no other agent would go. So that's a really cool trick that you could do that's going to show the sellers you're on a different level than everybody else. Now, we have to impress before we arrive. That is why it's important to send a pre-listing package, and there's a couple things that we want to include here. As we can see here, expertise, testimonials, and marketing strategies. So for me, I would always send a pre-listing package that would have information about my brokerage, right? I'll talk about that more later on, but it's really important, especially as a new agent or an agent with not much business, to leverage your brokerage stats. And this is going to help you gain a bit of credibility and authority. Also leveraging your marketing strategy, right? I would send examples of my YouTube videos. I would send examples of what I do in terms of leveraging Facebook ads to get additional exposure and leveraging technology. Right now, I would talk about leveraging artificial intelligence and any testimonials, just so people could see, hey, you're prepared, you're showing up, and if you want to have a pre-listing presentation dialed in, just ask ChatGPT for it. It's really simple. Say, hey, I need the ultimate pre-listing package to be able to send potential home sellers before I show up to the listing presentation that's going to impress them and make sure that I'm positioned as the go-to agent. Create this for me and it'll do it. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. But this is just going to be a way to, again, go that extra mile. You'll see this time and time again, is making sure that you're always positioning yourself as somebody with authority, with a credibility, with confidence, and like you have a system in place, which is really important. So the data, showing up with the data, not just opinions. There's a couple things here that are really critical. Now, this is really interesting because every time I asked a seller who worked with somebody else previously, so basically an expired listing, what they're looking for in an agent or what did not go well in their past relationship with an agent, almost 100% of the time they said communication. And I was sitting here and my forte is social media marketing, advertising, video content, drone footage back when that was new. And nobody really said they wanted that. Now that helped me win listing presentations as a unique value proposition, which we'll get into, but people care about communication. So it's really important for that to be the foundation of it. We'll talk about that later in terms of questions controlling conversations, not statements. The quickest way to lose a listing presentation is to show up and start presenting and vomiting all this information. But you have to know the data. The more you know, the more it's going to position you as an authority. Why? If we look at this right here, the local inventory, right? So it's good to have an idea of current days on market, list to sales price, just so you can educate sellers on what to expect. If the average days on market is 7 and they price it way too high and it's 14 days in, well, that's going to be call for negotiation of a price reduction, things like that, right? It's going to give you power to control the outcome. Also looking at price trends, right? There's a lot of people right now that are stuck in the COVID era of pricing, thinking that it's worth 6 figures more than it is now. Well, we need to look at pricing trends so that they're brought back down to reality. Location and data. This is really critical because if there's a gorgeous property and I'm here sitting in my beautiful lake house, it is facing the mountains and it sees the sunset. Well, a few houses down that way where you don't get the sunset, you don't get the mountains, and you see traffic over a bridge, a very beautiful bridge albeit, it's not going to be worth as much. Mine will be worth more just because of the angle, the location, and some of the amenities and walking scores, right? So it's really critical to know this because this is the nuances that most sellers won't think about that again will position you as the authority. So helping sellers price to win. Creating your CMA. With your CMA, it's really critical to not just look at comparable properties, but also again, looking at positioning of the property, location of it, because you can see two properties that based on the photos on the MLS look identical, but if one of them is in a beautiful cul-de-sac like I am here with nobody around you, and another looks identical, but is backing onto or is one street away from train tracks, well, they both look the same, but one is going to be worth more than the other. So we have to look at all of the details, and that's also why it's really important in order to get any upgrades and things like that. Now, when you look at simplifying your explanation, making it easy to understand, for me being an engineer, I was able to take a very data-driven approach, which really helped because I was good at the numbers and articulating why I thought the price should be what it is. Now, comps and visuals, right? Being able to show, I would always print out all of the comparables in person, right? I would print out physical copies and I would be able to show them the photos. I would show them the pricing. I would show them on a map where it's located. And if this one was closer to a school, this was closer to train tracks, this had a better view. This had cul-de-sac, all these different elements, because that is what shows you as the more knowledgeable agent, whereas the majority of agents in your market are gonna say, hey, here's the photos, they look the same, should be priced this way, right? No, you're gonna win the listing. And explain the pricing psychology, right? Time versus price relationship. There's a graph out there and you can find it, but basically it is the price on the vertical axis and time on the horizontal axis. And it's kind of like this, right? Where at the top, the lowest time, the lowest days on market, you're usually gonna get the highest price. And then as time goes on, the price decreases and decreases because you start to get bottom feeders and people that are looking for a deal. This is really critical because if sellers want the highest price on their property, they usually do, they want the lowest days on market. If they want the lowest days on market, they have to price it properly, not too high like some attempt to do, right? Because a lot of sellers want to list it for higher than it should be listed for, and then they wonder why they end up making a lot less. Because as time goes on, you need to explain to the sellers that people are going to question, why did such a beautiful property sit for so long? Why hasn't it sold yet? Then they start to get worried. Then they start to push and try to get a discount and a deal, right? So the pricing straight out the gate is really critical. Now, I'll talk to you later on about how to make sure you guarantee you get your price, right? Because there's two different things you can do, both super creative, and I don't see anybody talking about it. So why you? This is really critical. If you can't answer the question, why I should work with you over the number one agent in your market, why should they work with you, right? Because you might be going up against the number one agent in your market, and it cannot be because you work so hard and you love people so much and you'll go above and beyond and say the same fluff that everybody says. You have to have a clear answer. So for me, in the beginning, mine was leveraging the brokerage stats, of course, which is good to do, but also leveraging modern technology. My forte was leveraging Facebook ads to get ample exposure on properties that are getting it in front of people that aren't looking on the MLS. It was also leveraging video marketing and showing very high quality videos regardless of price point, even if it was a cheap property. And making sure that people knew that I would do way high quality photos. And I did, right? Real twilight, not the fake twilight stuff. Very, very high quality. And that positioned me as an authority. So for you, you need to find out what your unique value proposition is. It could be leveraging a specific technology. It could be anything that you're good at, right? But it's important for you to be able to answer that question because if you can't answer it, why should anybody else work with you? Now, before showing you on the next slide how to actually build your listing presentation, let's talk about should you go first or go last. Well, this depends on your confidence level. If you are incredibly confident, go first. Why? You set the tone for all of the other presentations. And when you're confident and you get some of the repetitions in, when you go first, you can pretty much make everybody that comes after you look like an absolute unprepared rookie. And then it just sticks with the sellers. Wow, they're always comparing the next person to you, and they're always gonna remember you. And so if you have a lot of confidence and you are really prepared, you pretty much establish the benchmark and you wanna set it so high that nobody else can touch it. If you are struggling with confidence in the beginning, it's better to go later on or last. And I did this in the beginning when I was a bit nervous as well, because we all start out a little bit nervous. And that's where you can start to ask the sellers, what did they like about some of the agents? What did they say that they're gonna do for you? And you can actually use that to your advantage to be able to kind of counter that and say, well, here's what I'm gonna do above and beyond that. And you can then position yourself as the go-to agent and leave a lasting impression and pretty much address all the concerns raised by others if there was a bunch of things they didn't like about some of the agents, which is super cool. So now what I'm gonna do is share my screen on a different platform, and I'm gonna show you how to leverage artificial intelligence to build an insane listing presentation before we get back to how to win the listing presentation. Okay, so now we're here in ChatGPT. There's two platforms that we're gonna use, which is ChatGPT to get the data and then Gamma to create the presentation for free. And this is really powerful because it used to take you tons of hours. Like in the beginning, it took me hours on Canva to create a terrible presentation. It was atrocious, but it worked because I studied it and reviewed it and was knowledgeable, but it was really ugly. And that's because it was reliant on me and it took way too much time. But when you look at this, you can see that I leveraged deep research on ChatGPT instead of just a generic prompt. And I basically asked for it to position me as the go-to agent to win listings over any other agent in the market to create the best listing presentation possible. And you can see here that after 12 minutes and 40 sources that it scraped and 127 searches, right? That's what deep research is. It's not just a quick prompt response immediate. It took 12 minutes to get this answer because it was searching 40 sources and 127 different searches. So now I use this as an example of a Houston realtor. You can see the ultimate guide to effective listing presentations for Houston. And it breaks out based on data and all of the best articles out there, what all the best strategies are to build the best listing presentation that will beat other agents. So you can see the agent background, local market snapshot, CMA, selling process, pre-listing preparations, pricing strategy, market plan, services and differentiating factors, track record, social proof, conclusion, next steps, and all of the different things, right? Visual design and storytelling techniques in order to win, and examples of slide layouts. So you can see here different tools that you can use in order to present it. And strategies, right? Strategies tailored toward that market is basically what this did. You can see it goes on and on, handling all the objections to close the deal. And this is why I encourage you to use deep research instead of just a general one, right? Actionable takeaways. And so what I did is I said, great, now turn it into the ultimate listing presentation for me so I can put it into Gamma and create a beautiful presentation. And look at what it did, right? Created the entire slide. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna copy this, and you can see there is 15 different slides here. And then we're gonna come over to Gamma, right? So Gamma is pretty much an AI platform that does graphic design, incredible things, listing presentations, PowerPoints, lead magnets, anything that you need. And you can get started for free, which is super cool. So we'll log in here with my information, and then we're gonna create new. Paste in text, and then we're gonna paste in all of the details related to, again, making sure that we are positioned as the go-to agent in Houston. Then we're gonna click continue. Now what we want is we want detailed information, max text per card. We want to use artificial intelligence images, and we want to make sure that additional instructions, right? Make the images professional and specific to real estate in Houston. So now we have all of our slides, right? Story about you. We have introduction, the market snapshot, CMA, strategic pricing, home selling process, home prep, marketing strategy, targeting the right buyers, your unique selling advantage or unique value proposition, track record, selling expertise, right? Certain things about you and your brokerage. Seller concerns, right? So pre-handling the objections that you know they're gonna have. Getting it sold, right? What the steps are in order to go for the close in the appointment. And then contact information as just a bit of a thank you to kind of wrap it up a little bit. Continue. Now you wanna select branding based on your branding, so you can go professional, dark, light, colorful, whatever you want to do. This one looks pretty clean, so we'll just go with it, but you can play around with these. And as you can see here, one click, one prompt, and this follows all of the deep research from ChatGPT in order to make sure that you have everything. And you can see how quickly this is creating it. It'll take less than 60 seconds live to create the entire listing presentation, which is crazy. And what you're gonna see is that it's all specific to Houston, and all of the images are created using artificial intelligence that look professional, and it's gonna give you data, graphs, charts, everything. So this is how we can create an incredible listing presentation so that you can go in prepared. Now, my recommendation to you is once this is done, go back through and I'll show you how you can do this, edit it a little bit, right? Tailor it to you, include some of the information about you, passions, hobbies, who you are a little bit, any accolades, any credibility, just so that you are positioned as an authority. But this is gonna get you about 95% of the way there. Then you can put 5% little tweaks, and then obviously you have to include comparative market analysis, things like that. So we should be wrapping it up here pretty quickly, as you can see at the very end. So handling all the objections and ready to get started. So this is the second last slide, walking people through that call to action, right? Getting them to commit, sign on the dotted line, and ready to go. So now you can see it's done. If we go back to the top, you can see AI graphics here. So all created with artificial intelligence. This is a home that is from Houston, right? You know, why you're the agent, so you want to put in some information about you here. You can look at the median price, days on market, so you want to fill in the right data. And maybe you don't like the look of the slide, right? So you're like, oh, I don't like the look of, you know, this slide. You can change it, right? So you can change it to be on this side. You can change it to be on that side, different information, or you can change the image as a whole. But this will pretty much get you the majority of the way there, right? You can look at all the data here, specific to Houston. And here's pretty much everything, right? So it builds it for you. Then you just need to go click share, export, and you can export it as a PowerPoint or a PDF, whatever you prefer to use. Usually PowerPoint, because then you can edit it really easy and add in different slides like the CMA, and then you're good to go, right? So leverage artificial intelligence. This is designed based on deep research to position you and be in the structure that's going to help you win listings. So let's go back to the presentation now and walk through the rest of how to win listings against any other agent. So as you can see here, we walk through some of the different elements, building a winning slide deck, making sure that we've got testimonials if you have any. If not, to leverage some from your brokerage. Same with the stats, same with the unique value proposition. We have the selling process, pricing breakdown, technology showcase, and everything. So let's handle some of the objections, right? A lot of time you're gonna have commission concerns, timeline issues, buy before sell, competitor comparisons. So let's go through each one in a second here. But you wanna make sure that you're over-prepared, right? The worst thing that you can do is have everything on your laptop, but then your laptop dies, or it freezes, or it doesn't work. So I always like to have a digital presentation, a physical one, and make sure that you have your paperwork ready. So if you use DocuSign, have it, you know, there. If you want, I also would physically print out the contract so people can wet sign it as well in person, so that you can walk them through it to make it very convenient and very easy. So the appointment, right? The appointment starts before the pitch. There's going to be a couple elements here that are going to be really critical. So we can see we need to, you know, do a brief rapport building just to build a bit of relationships and establish credibility here. Then we want to talk a little bit about the generic market first to kind of set the tone, then look at their home, then we want to come back, and you always want to sit at the kitchen table like we're at right here, because that's where business is done, and then we're going to wrap it up. So let's look at setting the foundation. So setting the foundation, we need to make sure that we review their motivation of their timeline, right? This is going to be a massive determining factor. After that, we need to give market context before looking at their home and being able to kind of identify some of the nuances of their homes, upgrades, unique features, things like that. They need to have an idea of the landscape of the market, average days on market, list to sales price, specifically market as a whole. Also property style, right? Apartment, townhouse, detached, single family, things like that. And then we want to talk about the walkthrough. Now, there's a couple crazy things that I encourage you to do. The first, so you can see here, right? Comment on unique features. You want to comment on some of the unique features. If there's, like my house, like big vaulted ceilings, or on the lake, or a beautiful view, or whatever the situation is, commenting on that just makes them feel really good, right? Taking notes of things that you want to highlight in the videos that you should be recording, as well as the marketing, so the listing description. Asking about upgrades, right? So if you see things that have been upgraded, you want to ask like when, right? How much, when, and building rapport, right? This is the ninja trick. You want to ask them, right? Like, what will you miss about this house? What is something that only somebody who's lived here for as long as you would know? Because what happens is people always look at homes at face value because they've never lived there, right? So they don't know the creature comforts when, during the morning, the sun comes in at this specific angle and hits this perfect, and that's where we have breakfast, and it's so peaceful in the evenings, and you can hear the birds chirping, and there's no, you don't know that stuff, and neither does anybody else walking through that property. So I would always ask the sellers, what is something unique that nobody would know unless they lived here, right? Like, what are your favorite parts of living in this property? The proximity to this school, the proximity to that thing, the night market that happens on the street over, any of that, the neighbors, right? You want to highlight that in the videos that you do and in the listing description. Because here's the thing, none of your competitors are gonna ask that question. It's just gonna be all face value stuff. And after you ask that question and they respond, I want you to ask them, by the way, did anybody else ask you that question? And they're probably gonna say no. And when they say no, that's where you can come in and be like, I'm so shocked that they wouldn't ask that. That's the most important part of communicating why your home is so special compared to all of the other properties listed for sale right now. That's one of the biggest factors in getting the most money for your property in the shortest amount of time. I'm surprised they never asked that. And when you say that, it immediately clicks and they start to realize, wow, this person's different, right? They go above and beyond. Making it about their home. So then we want to talk about the market analysis. Now here is where you might get stumped, which is pricing. Especially in today's market, people want more for the property than it's worth, even though properties and listings are sitting. And so there's two unique things that you can do that are going to help get your price that you know is the right price based on the data. Let's say they want to list at $550,000, but you know the property is only worth $520,000. Two things you need to do. And I don't see many people doing this. The first thing is book showings at the three nicest properties that are listed between like $530,000 and $560,000. The nicest ones you can find. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go walk through those properties with the sellers. You're gonna book showings and walk through it. And you pick the ones that are stunning because that's gonna be their competition at $550,000. So choose the ones that are, again, maybe $540,000 to $560,000, $570,000, and help them realize. Because here's the thing, you walk through those properties, you don't have to say a word. They're gonna start looking and see the kitchen, and see the quality, and see the upgrades. And when you go back to their property, you're just gonna ask them, hey, what do you think? Pretty much every time when they see their competition in person, they can detach from the emotional side of loving their property and look more logically and say, damn, you're right. Those are actually nicer, right? And you can point out little things about the age, the condition, all stuff that kind of combats what you saw at their house to make sure you get the price. But making it tangible makes a huge difference. Now, the second thing you can do is if they're really hung up on it, they're really pushing, right? You know the average days on market, let's say it's 7. Say, you know what? Let's list at $550,000. Maybe you're right. I'm gonna do everything that I can. However, if we pass a week's time and we don't have any offers, after that you agree to adjust the price to where I believe it should be positioned. You don't wanna say lower the price because to them that immediately means money out of their pocket, even though it was never money in their pocket, right? Because it was a fictitious price. But if you say reposition the price or restructure it, that's gonna make sure that you have it in the contract that they sign off on. That if it doesn't sell in 1 week, You'll test the waters at their price, but after 1 week, you'll reposition it to the one that you know is gonna be competitive in the market. Then you can make them happy, you can make you happy, and life is good. And you wanna ask for the signature, right? Like you want to make sure that this is about getting the deal done. Right? So many people are so afraid to ask for the close, but if you don't ask for the close, they don't get the close, right? Now, if you really knock it out of the park, I started getting to the point where they pretty much just asked, where do I sign? Like, what are the next steps? And I would walk them through. But if they don't, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you get a no, I'm not ready, I need to think about it. What do you need to think? Like, is there anything else that I can do to help answer any questions that you have, right? Is there anything else that you're concerned about or any other things that I can help you guide through? But asking for the signature is incredibly important. Now, it's really important to position yourself as the obvious choice. So we can see here, right? Your unique value proposition, custom marketing, tech experience, and some of the other things. That's why, like, for example, you want to leverage your brokerage stats. For us at eXp Realty, like we might show, for example, that we're the #1 transaction volume brokerage in the United States, right? Here's how we stack up against every other brokerage. We sell way more homes than any other brokerage. Also, you might want to show stats like this, right? And if you want to know more about partnering with me and my team and getting all of my social media training for free, all of my guidance, all of my coaching, and how I've helped agents just like you break multiple six figures, even $1 million in their first year, click the link in the description and we can have a private conversation on Zoom. But you want to show stats, right? Like this is about positioning you and your brokerage as the best option for the sellers. So it's good to leverage big credibility stats like this. And if you're at a brokerage that doesn't have one, you probably want to reconsider which brokerage you're with. So modern tools, we kind of talked about that in terms of leveraging technology. This is really critical. Going back to communication, with communication being the #1 skill set that sellers care about, you need to mirror communication. This is called sensory acuity or mirroring. And what we're referring to here is that the person with the most energy controls the conversation. Most energy, most clarity, most confidence usually controls the conversation. But you can't have too much of a gap, otherwise it's really bad. So let me explain. If you have too much energy and they're very calm, collected, soft-spoken, you are going to overwhelm the heck out of them and it's going to push them away. On the other side, if they're super energetic and you are super calm and collected and quiet, they are gonna feel like they're gonna bulldoze you, run over you, and they want somebody with more authority. You want to match their energy levels, whether it be high or low, but be slightly more than them so that you control the conversation. So being able to just get an understanding of, you know, are they more calm, collected? Are they more analytical? Are they playful? Like this is what makes the biggest difference is when they can feel like you get them, right? You understand that you're one with them. That is going to be a game changer because oftentimes your competing agents are going to come in guns blazing, talking about why they're so amazing and what they do above and beyond everybody else. But you can see here, listen more than talk. Questions control conversations, not statements. And so when agents go in and they're just vomiting everything on their presentation straight out the gate, it overwhelms people and it just doesn't feel good. So it pushes them away. But you want to ask questions. Here's why. Not only do questions control conversations, but when you ask the right questions, you basically get all the ammunition you need to then loop it back at the end as to why you're the best agent. So when you ask them, what are you looking for in an agent? They're gonna tell you, okay, focus on that in your listing presentation about how you're all about that. Oh, what did you not like about either your past agent or agents you've worked with in the past? Oh, cool. You're gonna talk about how you address that later on in your listing presentation. What would be the ultimate situation for you, right? When would you like to be out of here? what would like a price be on average? What's your dream outcome? Okay, cool. You're gonna talk about how you're gonna get their dream outcome. So you can start to see if you ask the right questions, you will be the agent that they select. And you know, you want to acknowledge their concerns, right? Nobody's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's never a big deal, right? That's what a lot of agents do. They have a concern, don't worry about it. No, be like, hey, you know what? I understand why I have that concern. I had this seller that had that same concern as well, but here's how we help them. Or, you know, when I was selling my first house, I kind of felt that same way. But rest assured, here's a strategy that I'm gonna share with you of how we're gonna get you to avoid that, right? So you want to acknowledge their concerns, like be human, genuinely care. This isn't about the commission. The commission is a byproduct of you actually helping somebody. So let's go through some of the most common objections. We're worried we won't find our next home, right? Well, you want to kind of present some timing solutions, right? So what are you looking for in your next home? Okay, cool. We'll pull up the MLS and see how many actually fit that criteria. Probably more than the sellers think. Showcase success stories, right? So if you have somebody that you worked with in the past that felt that way, but you helped them overcome it and have the dream outcome, then you can talk about that as well. But you can see, we can structure the sale with the right timing, for example, so that you have ample time to find the right home as well. But we want to pay less commission. This is really important. There's a couple ways you could address this, right? If somebody is hung up on the commission, right? You don't want to discount this. The only time you want to discount this, and I know some people are gonna, you know, judge about it, but this is what I did. If you need to get like your first luxury listing, and you want to be able to leverage that for marketing and exposure to break into the luxury space, sure. If it's going to be a difference between you and somebody else and it's a 1% difference, if you properly leverage that, you'll make so much more money in the future. But I digress. You know, we want to pay less commission. Be like, hey, I could charge more, right? Some people have paid me more. That's kind of a cheeky way to address it. But you want to always help people understand, like, you know, they're going to get what they pay for. And if they want top dollar, you want to go kind of reiterate your value proposition and what you do above and beyond. And also say like, hey, if somebody's only making this amount on your listing, but then they're getting paid full amount on other listings, like how hard do you think they're going to push to sell your property if they're making a fraction of what they would make anywhere else, right? Not very hard. They're not going to treat it as a priority, right? I want to treat this as my priority and show you how I'm going to get the job done. But it always goes back to premium service, right? It always goes back to justification of why you're going to help them make more than the difference in the commission compared to discounting it. Very easy one. Why you, not them, right? So some of the ways you could do this is really focusing on that value proposition. We talked about that, so I don't want to get too much into it. Now, there's a couple things you can do to really separate yourself apart. Gratitude, right? This is really cool. Gratitude sets you apart. So one of the things I always used to like to do is do like a handwritten card of thanking them for the opportunity and letting them know like how excited I am to make their dream come true. And again, going back to the pre-listing presentations where you identified their motivation. Are they looking to move here or there? Why are they moving there? Okay, cool. Like include that in the handwritten card. There's little details like that that just show if you go above and beyond, if you go the extra mile, it's never crowded. So handwritten card, right? Thanking them. That is going to go a long way. Same day email. So prompt follow-up, right? Like after you leave their house, go home, address anything that you either didn't know the answer to or that they had concerns about or that they wanted more information on, like that day. Do it immediately. And some sort of like thoughtful token, right? Flowers, something like that. Something that just shows that you genuinely care. Schedule the follow-up after you've left their house, right? So once they've signed the agreement, you want to schedule the listing, right? You want to schedule all the photos, all the videos. You want to get the timelines, all of that good stuff based on the key dates because you want to be able to time. Usually you want to do photos and listing videos at least a week before they wanted to go live. So you need to backdate and kind of reverse engineer the day they want to go live, we need to make sure we have proper professional photos, not taken by yourself, short form videos, long form videos. Again, all stuff that I teach the agents that partner with me, which you can do in the link in the description for free with all my top social media training. That's going to position you. We have an insane listing marketing strategy, and it's crazy what it does for additional exposure. Oftentimes people sell the property from our listing marketing strategy with unrepresented buyers, not even working with a realtor because of how much exposure it gets. But we want to give clear next steps, right? Communication is everything. Written, verbal, nonverbal. You need to make sure that they always know the next step. So before you leave the property, say, okay, here's what needs to happen next. We signed the agreement, great. Then we're gonna book photos, videos here. Any best dates that work for you? Cool. Okay, then it's gonna go live here. After it goes live, going back to that marketing plan, here's exactly what I'm gonna do. Okay, then we're gonna do an open house here. We're gonna get feedback. We're going to, for me, every single Monday, I would provide a detailed update. This is so important. I would provide a detailed update every Monday to every listing that I had, every seller, right? Because communication is what they cared about. So every Monday they knew to expect an email from me breaking down any feedback on their property, any new listings that are competitors, any sold, under contract, pending, or withdrawal, or expired that are competitors as well. So they understand the landscape of what's happening. Because where a lot of people go wrong and why the average person thinks realtors suck at communication is because there's no expectation set. There's either two things that happen: no expectation set, or you can contact me whenever you want, which is why you get emails at 11:59 p.m. When you're trying to sleep, right? You said it, that's the expectation you set. You need to set clear expectations. So for example, when time is elapsing and their property is listed and there's getting showings and you're not providing feedback, or they see a new listing on the market that came up and you didn't mention it, they start to get squirrely, anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, and disappointed in you. All of that is resolved with expectations. So you want to stay in the world, right? You want to make sure that there's constant communication, constant touch points, adding them to the CRM, making sure they're also added to your transaction management system, listing alerts so you can put them on top of alerts for any competitive properties, educational content, right? If there's anything new that comes up that impacts the value of the property or the latest market stats, you can include that. And making sure that you just stay on top and build the relationship. So if you're new, right? If you're a brand new agent with no experience, a couple things you can do, right? Make sure you compensate for your experience with data, with clarity, and with confidence. And also, you can do something that I did for higher price point properties. Partner with somebody. I was getting a lot of luxury, like multi-million-dollar listings and sellers reaching out to me because of the quality of my marketing, but I never worked with one before. So I brought my own broker into the listing presentation with me because he brought 15 years of experience. So that was allowing me to tap into his experience. I brought the marketing, he brought the experience. We won the listing and they never asked about my experience because I brought him, right? So you can leverage the brokerage support and people at the brokerage as well, and be authentic. So again, if you have any questions, drop a comment below. I wanna make sure that you go out there. This is the greatest time to be a realtor ever, because things are down, and when things are down, agents get overwhelmed, they get distracted, they get fearful, and while they're all over here, you know, complaining about this and going, this is your time to take market share. This is your time to double down, hone in your skills, get better at communication, dial in your value proposition, and win those listings over other agents in your market. There's never been a more exciting time than right now, based on the tools and the technology that we can leverage, like artificial intelligence and social media, and making sure that, again, you thrive. If you look at any of the most successful businesses, most of the top Fortune 500, they were all built during difficult times out of passion and out of necessity and out of grit. this is one of those times where you can forge your future if you go all in. So if you would like to see the entire listing marketing strategy, just click this next video because I break down exactly how to use social media, paid ads, and every strategy to knock it out of the park and blow your clients' minds when it comes to marketing their listing. Again, thanks so much for tuning in as always. Please make sure you give me a subscribe if you enjoyed this video and got value out of it, and we'll see you in the next one.